Good evening, everybody. Lovely to have you here with us at Swedenborg Community Victoria, our usual Friday night discussion group. And it's a great pleasure to welcome Reverend Julian Duckworth, who's a colleague and a long-time friend of mine. Lovely to have him here to be able to talk about his work, his journey, and his fascination with Swedenborg. So welcome, Julian. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you.
You've been... you've talked to the Melbourne group, I think, on several occasions in the past, haven't you?
Way back.
Yeah, so anybody watching from Melbourne will be familiar with Julian, will know him well, and those further afield may do as well, because, of course, you don't hail from Australia originally, do you?
No. So, no, I don't. I'm an immigrant.
An immigrant. And but here permanently now, I think?
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely, our family's here, and that's a big pull, as will be picked up again during the journey.
Yes, yeah. So the format to tonight is very similar to ones we've had in previous months. If you've been watching us this year, our Friday night discussion groups, We'll talk about Julian's journey. We'll talk about his work. We'll talk about the work that he's doing now, and he's also brought a topic to discuss tonight. And we'll just also have opportunity for questions. So, if anybody has a question for Julian about absolutely anything, please do drop it in the chat, and we'll share it with him. When the opportunity presents itself. Julian, can you tell us, please, what you're doing now? You're a retired new church minister. How long were you active as a new church minister?
Well, it would be in total from 1980 to 2018. So that's 38 years.
Good long time. Yes.
In Australia, it would be from 1991 to 2018, but I'll leave 27 years. I was going to say I'll leave others with the maths.
With the maths.
I haven't been in Australia. Somebody asked me not long ago, have you been in Australia longer than you were in England? We came out in 1991. No, but I guess in a decade, if I am still here, I'll be approaching that equal and then the other tilt.
Yes. But as a minister, you have been a minister in Australia longer than you were a minister in the UK.
Yes.
If my maths is correct.
Yeah. 11 years in Britain and 27 years here.
So over the course of your ministry, you've served in a number of different churches. Do you want to tell us where you've served?
Oh, quickly. Ruth's my wife, with with our daughter in 1991, we went to Birmingham, which had a very interesting local community awareness of the new church, and it became in our 11 years bigger, and people came knowing nothing about the new church, appreciated what the church was. It looked nice, the building, and we did different things. There was a youth group, a pretty active one. And we were there, and it grew, and people invited others to come along, try us out. And I think that was very rewarding. And then that was 1980. And then we came out to Australia. But before that, we had 3 months and then 13 months in Mauritius, which is the island of Madagascar. It's a British colony, now independent, and it has a long-standing new church set of people, quite large in previous times. And they had ministers out from England on a regular basis, not just to drop in, but to stay. Ruth's father was there for 6 years. We were there 3 months and then 13 months. So I took services in French. I talked out the front and gave a sermon in French, and it was quite a novel situation in a way.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And then, so beyond Mauritius, then
back to Birmingham, and then had an invitation drop in the post from the Sydney Society of the New Church. A full-page, one-side letter that said, we are interested in whether you would be interested to come out and become the minister of the Sydney Society of the New Church. I won't go into the reasons. I showed the letter to Ruth, and a quarter of an hour later, we wrote back and said yes.
Oh, wow. So it really, there was not a lot of deliberation required.
No, they'd done their homework. We had 4 young children. The schooling for the 2 oldest was not disturbed. And 3 years later, we went out.
Yes. Yes, okay. And so then you were in ministry in Sydney right through till 2018?
Yep.
2018.
Yes.
And now retired?
Now retired. When we retired, Howard Thompson is the current minister, American, kind of loaned from the American New Church.
Yes.
I'd always held the belief that, from experience or hearsay of other situations, that a minister who's been the minister should not hang around when the new minister comes in. And so we moved up to Port Macquarie, which was 4.5 hours drive north of Sydney. And we were there from 2018 till this year, 21st of February.
And you've moved even further north now.
And we've moved even further north now. We've moved up the north side of Brisbane to the Sunshine Coast. And it rained and rained and rained and rained when we arrived, so very little sunshine. And a friend of our son is a farmer, basically, and very busy, and we could see the need or the help that we could be being here to help with their 2 little children and any other jobs and cook meals and so on. It rained and rained and rained, flooded the farm 3 times. And a friend of my son's said, it's not the Sunshine Coast, it's the Nunshine Coast. But in the last 2 weeks, it has been beautiful.
Oh, lovely. Well, it's good to hear you've got what you finally what you went up for.
Yes, and I must just add, it's not an agricultural farm. It's a very busy 53 acres, 44 horses. So all round our house, we're tenanting on the site of the farm. All round our house, there are 8 to 10 paddocks with 1 or 2 horses in each.
Okay.
Very different.
Yes. I imagine it's very different from life in Sydney. Knowing the church in Roseville, in the northern Sydney, very, very busy. near Chatswood, that would just be, yes, a real sea change in lots of ways.
Yes, and one more thing is that in Port Macquarie, people say, you know, are you ready for retirement? Do you know what it's like? And I said to a lot of people, well, I've got 5 hobbies and I shall just get on with them. But both Ruth and I found ourselves happily, but overcommitted to things we took on in Port Macquarie.
Yes.
For 7 years. I won't go into details, that's tedious, but I began to think I am just doing things rather than sitting and being able to choose what I do. And coming up, which wasn't the reason we came up, coming up has actually freed us so that I can say I'm not taking anything on in 2025. We're here to be available for family.
Yes, yes. Now, having said that, let's move on to what you are doing at the moment, because I know you're very busy in a project with what's known as the Basil Laser Trust. Do you want to just tell us about that?
Yes, and I'll be brief. It's very exciting. Basil Laser was a Sydney, born in Canberra, but he was a Sydney person who was Jewish by birth and upbringing, and then joined Christianity, and then came across through a friend a copy of Heaven and Hell and read it and put it down and came back to it and read it more thoughtfully and found that it answered a lot of spiritual issues going for him. And he contacted the Hurstville Society in South Sydney, and they were helpful. And over the next 25 years, he produced, after a lot of reading and listing of topics in Swedenborg, he wrote about a dozen booklets, I would say, large booklets, but not books.
Okay.
And they went to Africa, and they became very helpful for people over there and certain people over here and who knows where else. But now they're dated in terms of the language and in terms of the fact that they're just print books.
Yes.
So a handful of us are turning these excellent choice of quotes, adding our own choice of quotes to 7 books that are coming out over the next few years. We've nearly completed 2, and the 2 things that I would want to emphasize, there's the it's called Our Shared Spirituality, which I think is a great project title because it suggests that we're universal and inclusive, not over there exclusive.
Yes. Yeah.
And the language that we are using, we have a very good translator, a New Church minister, currently in Paraguay of all places. And he is translating these quotes into everyday language. And we are aiming to be less doctrine based and more personal experience based.
Okay.
And that traces back to something in me which is a move in myself to a kind of deeper, more personal feeling about God, rather than what the new church has taught me.
Yes.
And I'm very happy that that's kind of evolved in me. And quite a lot of that is there in the presentation material of this project that I've told you about.
Mm.
And I think it's very exciting, and hopefully breaking new ground. It will produce personal spiritual things to a good number of people beneficially.
Yes. Okay. And what's your role in this project, Julian?
I'm the editor.
Mm-hmm.
I very much check wording
Yes.
and make sure that it's right, it's appropriate, it's not Swedenborgianese,
Mm.
it's not baffling, it can't be taken the wrong way, it's clear, and all that. So we've got me doing that. We've got Donna Heldon, who has professionally produced books 10, 12 or more years ago.
Yes.
And she's a book designer.
Mm.
So she's our designer. And Lee Woofenden in Paraguay is the translator. And the three of us are engaged. And there are others involved, one of which is David, overseeing the project take place.
Yeah. So where are you at? I understand one of your books is pretty close to completion.
Is complete.
Is complete.
It could be printed tomorrow, and that would be fine.
And which one is that of the
That
title?
one is called, Basil Laser called it Shunning Evils as Sins.
Mm. Very heavy theological language.
Yeah. We decided to call it Finding Our Spiritual Strength.
I see. Yeah.
Which doesn't say turning away from wrongs, but the whole of the book is entirely Basil Laser. We haven't altered a thing, but we've retranslated, and we've used this phrase, turning from our wrongs, many, many times in the book.
Yes, okay.
So that it's less teachy preachy and more helping people to look into their own personal life. The good and the bad, or the easy or lovely and hard, and so on, much more than just listening to what dogma tells us.
Yes, okay. Now, there's also going to be a website, I know.
Yep.
This is a screenshot that Donna sent through of the website. This is not live currently.
No. This would be live at the end of November, when our second book, called God and What God Does, with super Swedenborg quotes on God and on special topics to do with God. It's the biggest book, and it will be, fingers crossed, ready for the end of November to be printed, and also to go up on the website, our sharedspirituality.org, and be available print and ebook and PDF and other ways. But accompanying it is this set of spiritual quotes with images that will keep on changing and be added to. So it'll be an evolving website, not a static website.
Yes, okay, thank you.
With the other books following in their course.
Yes, okay. Well, I think it's something, well, that's worth looking forward to. So if anybody's interested, anybody's watching and interested in those books, I'd just say, keep in touch with Swedenborg Community Victoria or any of the other church groups around the country, and we'll keep you posted on those developments. Certainly being involved in the, monitoring the progress of this and hearing Donna and Julian's reports about their progress, and listening to Lee actually talk about his translations. It's been quite an interesting thing to be involved in. Very exciting, as you say. So
can I just add one banal thing?
Yep.
When Basil died, he left $100,000, I think American dollars, $100,000 to keep on producing these booklets to go wherever people wanted them. That got stopped after about 10 years, but the money kept on gaining interest. When the project started, it started with $400,000 to do this work that was dear to Basil's heart. And everybody agreed that this should be done. And the people who needed to be paid for the work they do could well be paid.
Yes, yeah. And have the job done properly. I mean, you look at the covers, they're lovely. And I know, having looked at Donna's designs of the book, they're really very attractive books. So they'll be well worth looking out for. No, that's wonderful. Thank you, Julian, for sharing about that. Now, I just wanted to talk about your journey. You, like me, you were born into the new church. Your dad was a minister, like mine was too. What kept you in it, and what made you decide, ministry is for me?
One word: music.
Okay.
When I was 13, I started playing the piano at 4. So I've now been playing the piano 73 years. And I kept going to my piano lessons, and they kept on going. When I was 13, my great aunt, who was a piano teacher in Lancashire, died and left our family a Bechstein piano.
Okay.
Now, the name Bechstein might ring a bell. You're talking pretty top quality. It was an upright Bechstein piano, and cupboards and cupboards and cupboards of music.
Okay. Lots to
So at
explore.
13, when a young man could say, all right, I've done that, what's next? Go out with my mates and so on. This fell into my lap. I was the only pianist in the family. And I just, golly, I just played. I played and played.
Okay.
When I was about 15, the London New Church that I was part of with my dad needed an organist, and they asked me, and I said, well, yeah, I can do that. And it kept me in the church orbit, which I'd only known that orbit. I'd never really felt this isn't my scene. I've never, even up to now, felt that the new church has got aspects about it that I don't agree with, or, that shouldn't be part of it. It seems to me very cohesive. But it was definitely this music that kept me in. And then I went away to college at 18. I went to Nottingham, It was a handful of people, about 12 people, and they said, if you want to play the organ, that'd be great. And then in time, they said, would you like to take a service? And I said, well, I'll take a service. And I rocked up to take the service, and the organist didn't turn up.
Okay.
So I actually took the service and played the organ for my very first service that I took in that church, or a church. Now, that didn't mean I was heading for ministry. People say, did God call you? Oh, I guess he did. I didn't feel that much. I remember I was teaching primary school kids, very busy. I was often away on church things at weekends. Come back on Sunday evening for school on Monday. And it got to the point where I had to make a decision. And I looked at the pros and cons of staying in teaching or becoming a minister. And it actually fairly calmly and dispassionately, logically said, you'll be less stressed being a minister.
Okay. So it's a very pragmatic thing, really.
No road to Damascus. That came years later.
Years later? How many years later? I'm interested.
Oh, I'd say in the last 5 years.
Okay.
I'd say in the last 5 years, my personality is not an intellectual one. I can handle intellectual academic things up to a point, but they don't really grab me. I'm an artist. I'm a musician. I'm a feeling person. And I would say round about 5 years ago, as I've already kind of indicated, this flip or change came about in me, where I actually felt that the heart of religion is in our personal life.
Okay.
I'd include in that a real sense of a relationship with God, but not in a kind of saved way. It wasn't a kind of big thing. It was a feeling that grew and grew, that real religion is managing my inner life, my thoughts, my feelings, my beliefs, my intentions, my will, my heart, my relationships, and my sense of a God to whom I can connect. And that became I use the word church, that became my church, but it was within me.
Yes.
And it was definitely an outcome from the organized new church, I feel.
Yes. Okay. We've just received a comment, as I'll just share here. So Basil Laser brought up a Jew in the Judaism religion. Did he ever explain to you that Judaism denies Jesus as the Messiah? Did you know Basil personally?
No,
Julian? No.
no. There is a book that he wrote, which is his biography. And the first few pages, he describes his Jewish childhood and its strictness and his unhappiness and his victimization at school and other things. And I think he said that when he became more thought able, whatever age that was, he saw that Judaism was not his religion.
Yes, okay.
He he would probably have known, that being told again and again and again. I think he mentions this in the book. That Jesus is just a man, not a God, not God, not the Son of God. That's terrible. And he was kind of bashed around the head with that kind of approach.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I notice, and not just Judaism. I know, Swedenborg talks about Judaism as being a fairly external religion, but I do know, talking to various people, the real hankering for externals, the externals of, external rituals, an external sense of holiness or the sacred, which is quite different from what Basil seems to have experienced and what you've described. But one of the things, Julian, you self-describe yourself as an artist and a feeling person. The other thing that I think of when I see you is a teacher. And this idea, your involvement in the Basil Laser project with language, with making Swedenborg understandable to a new generation of people, I think that's, to me, that seems very much part of who you are. Would that be right?
Oh, yes. People have often said, I can tell you've been a teacher, Julian. And that I think is that is there in me. I would keep that separate from a kind of an intellectualism. I think it's actually a conveying. I mean, there's nothing more wonderful than an excellent teacher. My history teacher, and I wasn't that interested in history, but he was just fabulous and brought things alive and motivated the whole class.
Yeah, I mean, I think about my own schooling, and I think of my physics teacher, for example, in very much the same sorts of ways. And I was fascinated by science, but Mr. Gibb teaching physics was just, inspiring. And my music teachers as well. It's interesting. I think I followed a very similar trajectory to you. I think I started playing the piano around the age of 4 or 5, and around the age of 13 or 14, I was invited to play the organ at church. So there's something about playing the organ at church, isn't there, very clearly? Look, I'll just mention to anybody who's watching, we've got a few folk watching live. If you do have any other questions, please do put them in the chat, and we'll address those at the appropriate time. But it seems opportunity.
Can I just mention a word that Swedenborg uses ever such a lot in the course of his much writing? And it's a word that isn't a teaching or a belief area it's actually very personal. And the word is affection. And Swedenborg talks about having an affection for what is true, having an affection for what is good. And angels have affection that we can only guess at. This kind of feeling, which I think the word affection just says it.
Yeah, thank you. So can we talk about your topic for tonight? You were going to talk about the Lord fighting for us. You had a particular question, I think is how you phrased it.
Yeah, I will, and I'll go through my synopsis. But feel free, everybody, whoever is out there, feel free to put your hand up technologically, and David will get you. I won't, and David will stop me. So don't just sit and take it. I chose this subject again because it's very personal. This idea of the Lord fighting for us should make us sit up and think, what's going on here? Fairly recently, it will be this year, I think, I came across a biblical verse, Exodus 14, chapter 14, verse 14. So very easy to remember. And this verse says, and it's a translation, but I'll use the one I've got. The Lord will fight for you. You only need to be still.
Okay.
And I looked at that verse and I was gobsmacked, because what was coming up was the word fight kind of bothers me. I'm at the moment, not now, but back then, at the moment, I can't begin to imagine how the Lord fights for me. And the other thing is, the Bible's telling me all I need to do is to be still. I don't like that.
You don't like it?
No, it goes against the grain.
Okay.
That was my initial reaction. So this Exodus 14:14 was like a double slap.
Okay.
A double slap. And I decided that I would actually explore this because of the effect that it was having on me, negatively or puzzlingly, and how I can kind of unzip real things from that verse. So I found myself coming up with two questions. So exactly how does the Lord fight for us? And do I really only need to be still? It's very strange and passive. Yes. Now, already you may be getting insights and meanings that speak to you positively about this verse. That's wonderful. But the first sight I had was daunting. And since then, I've become a little bit more kind of sober. And I'm going to take you through it in a way. I remember just all I need to do is be still. I remember years ago somebody telling me that Swedenborg says, the Lord regenerates us. And this person said, that is absolutely right. And therefore, I don't have to do anything.
Yes.
I looked at this person. I thought, really? Is that what it means for you? God regenerates us. No, I believe that. But now, if he does it, well, I'll just let it happen. Come on. Taking the wrong meaning from it, I believe. So it's an example of how we can actually come up with our own theology.
I'm just going to interrupt, Julian, because, talking about this, the first thing that comes to my mind is an image that Swedenborg refers to on a number of occasions, which is the idea of hanging the hands down and doing nothing. He talks about, influx into effort, doesn't he? So it requires that activity. So I understand why you say this, the only thing you need to do is be still, kind of goes against the grain in a way. Yeah.
Yes. But I would say it's an absolutely wonderful statement, because I think the not still is preventative of anything of God being able to come through in my protest, negativity, materialism, I know better than you do, and so on and so on, which are agitations in my personal life. And the be still, of course, is to just sit and wait.
Yes. So it's a very different stillness that's being described than perhaps one might assume at first. So it's not the stillness of activity so much as the stillness of mind. Is that a reasonable thing to say?
Yes. It's the key word is that we are receptive. Okay. Everything comes from God. We are receivers of God's love, light, and life. And when we choose to receive, we're still. And I think going into that space where we, as a child of God, are sitting in the presence of God, and God is always present in us. We can't live without that presence. But if we are there in that presence in ourselves, then it changes our state, and it leads to a stronger, the words are hard, a stronger bond and a sense of gratitude and other things.
Yeah. So it's allowing divine energy to flow into and through us rather than trying to become or create the energy from within ourselves. Is that a reasonable way of putting it?
It is. I would say, you can't start using fractions or percentages. But it is a relationship, and God, I would hasten to add, has felt fit, purposeful, and all-knowing why each one of us exists. Okay, that sounds a big, grand statement, but
so comment comes through again. If you are still in the mind, then you become unaware that he is speaking to you in many ways.
Exactly. If you are still in the mind, if you are, this is my take, thank you, whoever that is, then you are blocking by keeping objective spiritual ideas at arm's length and looking at them. You are not able that much much to enter into that space where God is felt to be there, and you know, and you open yourself up to it. I hope that's kind of what the giver of that comment was saying. That's what I got from it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So you you met this Bible passage. It, you know, raised itself to you, and it shocked you, I think, is probably an accurate thing to say. What then? Where did you?
It made me look at the word fight, and that became a sense of, you know, this is the Bible, this is God, this is spiritual, this is personal. I could think of a lot of ways that God may be fighting for us, but I just kind of blanched at the idea of, you know, God on a white horse going into the gates of hell and telling him to get lost.
Yes. Okay.
Leave this man alone.
Yes.
You know, that kind of stuff is just kind of medieval. And I began to get kind of ideas which were yes and no. Yes to the idea of God's determination to help me in my journey in ways in which God can. He can't physically help me. You may question that, but he certainly can spiritually help me and relationally help me and emotionally help me. And I would add to that quickly, yes, God in Jesus came and lived that life which redeems us. I don't want to go into salvation stuff tonight, but it redeems us, which means our spiritual freedom is kept intact so that we are free to make our personal spiritual choices, whatever those are.
Yes.
So those are yeses, but no in terms of God. As far as I know, because I'd be the first person to say, you know, I know that much about God when there's, you know, all that about God. Who am I to say what God can do and can't do?
Yes.
He may be doing things all the time for each of us and all of us, but I don't know that. I can believe he is, but I don't know the details. There's one thing I want to mention, and that is if you say, I will fight for you, I will fight for you, emphasizing fight, that gives one emphasis. If you change that to another word and you say, I will fight for you, that changes the color.
Yes.
And to fight for you is to kind of be in the driving seat, kind of, which I'm sure God must be at times for us. But if you say, I will fight for you, then having made us, I think God will do whatever God can do to bring us from hell into heaven. and wants us, longs for us to live eternal life in a positive way, and in a true way, heaven. If you change the idea of fighting from, knights and so on, if you change it to fighting against cancer and fighting for justice and fighting to change things for the better, then I think it's a different kind of fight, and I think it moves that bit nearer towards God's fighting for us. It's kind of holding, upholding, empowering, and so on.
It changes the identity of the enemy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, because so we can perceive our enemy as, hordes of or an army out. You face a physical army. That's one sort of enemy. But when you're talking about fighting cancer, then the enemy actually becomes, the cancerous cells within one's own body. And then I take it a step further in a way, and we talk about I might talk about myself as my own worst enemy, and so that's an entirely different order of an enemy and a different order of fighting that goes on, isn't it? Perhaps closer to what Swedenborg intends, I think, with his view of spiritual life.
I think the main thing for us, because there's so much that we don't and can't specify about God, the main thing I feel for us to take in this relationship of the journey we go with God, who is with us, is that it involves the two of us. Okay, if I can call God a one, it involves the two of us. And years ago, I came across a physical event that was slowed down enormously to slow motion, very slow motion, to help people view what goes on, and it's the lightning strike.
Oh, yes, yes.
And this is scientific, this is fact, this is physical. When lightning strikes the ground in that, imagine that slowed down, so it's 10 seconds. In that coming into the ground to release its energy, there is an up from the ground.
Oh, yes, yes.
To allow that input to come into the ground. And you never guess it, you never see it. The super slow motion shows it, and it's there on YouTube. But it's a wonderful analogy. You see, it's a wonderful analogy of energy in us being needed.
So, I suppose, what's your takeaway from this? Given the journey that you've travelled with this passage and this concept, where do you take it? How does it help you through life?
That God fights for us. That God fights for us. Well, I would say I marry that with my understanding of the various ways in which God provides things for me in my life. And I'm not talking about food or years of living. They're there. But I'm talking about spiritual things that God sets up. And I've got a number of them that I will just offer. I don't really even want to talk to them because of time. I'll just take a swig of water. My voice is a bit...
Go for it. Go for it.
I think in being provided for in various ways, we have a scenario where God, who's made me, and I'll use me, God, who's made me, has also made things in me and about me and around me that are contingent on that making of me. And that's what I call the provision of God. He sets things up. And if you'll bear with me, I will just give you a run through of the ones that came to me. And these are, I believe, the means by which God fights for us. But the first one, I want to change the preposition. I believe that most of all, God fights through us.
Okay.
Okay? Hope you understand that, the shift. God wants us to be choosing heaven. He can't force it, but he can help it. But I believe that God fights through us. And I believe that when we have determination, when we experience bad feelings and say, I really don't want this any longer. When we meet somebody that we would love to swear at, but we keep our mouth shut. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. But choosing that, I believe, is benevolent because I don't know that person that well. And other things are, I believe those are not me. I'm a channel. I think those things are God active in someone like me to make a choice to do, to not to do, because of my love for what is good, fair, and others-centered. And I will go so far as to say, I believe that that is God. It seems to me that it's me. And I'm doing the choice. I could open my mouth and swear, but I choose not to. I sound like a goody-goody, but I'm not. I believe that energy and that achievement almost is God. In the same way that I believe when we do good, the good that's done, often which we've no idea is happening, that's God.
Yes.
You see. We don't just get from God. I think God is actually right here, coming forth. Okay, these things, I don't know whether I'll cover them all. There are 8. I believe, and I've believed for a long time, that God sows seeds in us through learning, experiencing, and feeling, particularly early on. And this is a kind of Swedenborg idea. No, it's not. It's a Swedenborg spiritual point. And those things that we are experiencing early on, but not only early on, but mainly early on, they kind of go to sleep, but they make connections and associations in us. And one of my ministerial friends years ago said, without those from God, we'd be lost. If we didn't have something to call back on, we'd be lost.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. They're called remnant states because they remain in us. The second one is that God keeps us balanced between two opposite influences, so that we are always, this is arguable in a way, we are always free to make the choice that our heart feels we want to make. And we see both. You know, we get a good we get a good impulse, and we get a bad impulse. And having both, it's beholden on us to choose.
Yes.
And that's a provision of God. And as we're older, we can choose because we are confident in our choice, you see.
Yeah.
And as somebody once put it, we need to learn to choose to choose. I'll leave that with you. Next one, God gives us the ability to know and feel something of God and to feel and know our inner life. I could quote Swedenborg, but I think it's more useful if in just sharing that being human, where we can think about thinking and we can see beauty and ugliness almost equally all around us in various shapes and forms. And the idea in us that there is something else, something more, something higher, but I don't know what it is. But it's not just this. This is not enough. When I was a 7-year-old, our teacher read us The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. And I remember when Lucy went into the wardrobe, I nearly fainted because this girl was having an experience that I had already experienced.
Oh, okay.
In my own private dimension of other.
Okay.
And I think God must, I would say, put something of him latent in us to almost agitate and ache for something more than this world that I don't understand. Nice one, this one. God, I feel, works gradually, not quickly. Maybe God does do things quickly. I don't mean, ends Israel-Iran's war. I don't mean that kind of stuff. I believe God can do things that we suddenly realize and get an answer to or with. But by and large, God works very gradually. And we proceed, we have this journey. You see, a journey is a distance. I don't think spiritually there's any distance. And we've labored over, God up in heaven, and one day I'll go to heaven, and all this distance stuff. The less distance is not with God and me, the more real I think it's going to become. Do you remember Bette Midler? The Rose, lovely song. She sang a song called "God is Watching Us from a Distance."
Oh yes,
wonderful song, but the title is awful. just awful.
Julian, I just throw in, it just makes me think of, so I've just come back from holiday, and one of the things we were doing was climbing, climbing hills and mountains and things. And the comment was made that, as you're climbing up a hill, it always seems as though you're just about to reach the top. And then, of course, you get to that crest and you realize there's more. And it looks like it's almost as though the crest of the hill, the top of the hill, is just beyond your reach. And then you think you're almost there, and then suddenly you're not. And you're almost there, and suddenly you're not. But then at some point you are at the top of the hill. And that speaks to me of something of this experience that you're talking about, that we like the idea that we just suddenly get something, but of course that forgets the journey that it takes to get there, the work that it takes to get there. There's no such thing as an overnight success, although it looks like that to us, and we would like to be. But the reality is there's so much more of a backstory to reach it. That's what I think of as I hear you speak.
Yes, thank you for that, David. I do believe that there is the top of the hill, but we've got to understand that the top of the hill is not final arriving.
No, that's right.
It's actually being in it, knowing this is my heart, this is my life. That's the top of the hill, I believe.
Yes.
I've found myself having an aversion with becoming. One day I will become better. I don't think it's about becoming, because I think that dangles a carrot over us, which is not God's way at all. It's about being, and I think being is the key core word for our relationship with God. Being. One thing Swedenborg does, he lets us know that God works with us and often bends us. That's a Swedenborg word. He bends us because it's kind of polite, it's kind of loving to be bent rather than be frog marched.
Or broken, indeed.
Or broken. It's beautiful, bending. I think every teacher should have a course on bending. Not bending bodies, bending attitudes and so on.
Right.
A lovely one now. This is provision, God setting it up for us. I believe with all my heart, because I've had the experience, and I've heard many others say, that God gives us one or two wow, strange experiences that we can't explain.
Okay.
Okay, you may have had one. I've had one. I'm not going to tell you, it will take up too much time, but I've had one and I think two experiences like that, where something happened out of the blue and it was otherworldly and I can't explain it, but I sure as mustard I had that experience, and I wasn't on drugs, you know. And I think God is generous in and wise in allowing that to filter through, if that's the right word, and not too many. Otherwise we'd go crazy.
Okay.
And God gives us revelation. And God gives us revelation in the Bible, in sacred texts, directly, and gives us revelation indirectly in the world of nature. You know, nature's the mirror, and it's showing us forms left, right, and center of spiritual inner pattern and growth. And lastly, God allows us to have challenge, downtime, and temptations. I believe very much that more happens in us spiritually when we are struggling than when we've got it all set right. That's apathy. But struggle shakes us. And I believe that whatever they are, these times are opportunities, and they're not there to test us, they're there to equip us. To equip us to feel more, think more, and be more.
I think one of the words that's used is spiritual work, and I think that makes a great deal of sense.
Very much. So those are my 8 provisions, and I feel that that is part of God's ability. You know, he can't jump down. You know, somebody once said to me, this happened, this happened, this happened, and it's all wrong. Where's God? You see, in you, she wouldn't have got it. And that's not a condemnation. I think we condemn ourselves too easily. There isn't condemnation. God is not a condemning God or a doesn't care God. So, you know, I will fight for you is quite subtle.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that what you just described of that lady, there's the, I don't want to, command's the wrong word, but there's the suggestion to be still.
Yeah.
You know, it's, we need to allow ourselves the opportunity to notice the presence of God working for us. When our mind goes a million miles an hour trying to explain things or trying to question why is God not here, all those sorts of things. So yes, it's the being still and the noticing the presence, I think, is an important part of the journey. And that's, it takes a bit of discipline, I think, actually.
And discipline and willingness.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thanks, Julian. Thanks for spending the time. It's been good to chat. There were things you shared I didn't even know about you, so that was nice. And good to hear your reflections on that verse. Exodus 14:14, a reminder for anybody who wants to go and have a look at that. And the other thing I'll just bring up, just for anybody who's interested in that project that we mentioned earlier, if you are interested in the shared spirituality project that Julian spoke about, then do feel free to sign up to our updates. I will certainly be sharing that with our group here as that develops. So that's just something to...
Can I keep the screen up? Can I go back to that screen a moment?
There it is.
Look at the right hand picture of the dewdrop on the leaf.
Yes.
Dew is the only water that goes uphill.
Oh, there you go. Isn't that nice?
It goes up in its becoming liquid rather than air, and it moves to the tip of the leaf.
Oh, interesting. There you go. Thanks for your time, Julian. It's been lovely to chat, and
fun.
Always good to do this sort of thing. So that's been great. I will mention to anybody who's watching, the next couple of sessions, we have David Miller coming at the end of July. And just in the last couple of days, I've been able to set up an interview with Curtis Childs of Swedenborg Foundation and the Off the Left Eye YouTube channel. He'll be with us in the middle of August. So there's a couple of meetings that are well worth looking forward to, popping in your diaries. Again, if you want to know when they are, if you sign up to our weekly updates, I'll let you know as they come along. Again, thanks, Julian. It's been lovely to have a chat with you. Hope it's been enjoyed by those who watch it. If anybody is watching the recording of this, then as always, feel free to drop a question in the comments, and I can always pop those across to Julian, and he'll answer them privately if need be. But have a good evening, everybody. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks again, Julian.
Thank you for being a great host, David.
Pleasure. Been lovely to have you. All right. See you, everybody.
Bye.